and you see the buildings and the institutions, it's like these are really young. I mean, they use some like Greek and Roman architecture and the big, limestone blocks and pillars, but it's really, really young. And when you get into places like that where you're like, oh my God, there's, like they've been through so much, and then there's so many things have come and gone, and then there's some of these things that have, threads of those wisdom or lineages or teachings have, stood the test of time. I had a woman on the podcast not too long ago, Cassie Stockamp, and she was in Sri Lanka as well. Mm-hmm. And her traveling journey was inspired through a website called workaway.info.
Yeah, I was going to add that as a resource also to find international yoga jobs.
Yeah.
I would say that's a primary yoga resource, but there are also offerings for positions there too.
Yeah, I perused it a little bit and saw, they're, I think, in over 100 countries, and there are tens of thousands of postings for, so my point is, if someone wanted to do kind of what you're doing and travel, there are these resources that are pretty vast.
Yeah.
But what I hear you saying is it's really about picking a place, going there, seeing what's up in the community.
Yeah. Well, I just think, you just learn so much more from showing up and being there and kind of figuring out if you can allow for that space in your time, which your space in your schedule, because I realize not everyone can just buy a plane ticket and show up and be comfortable with that. But I think it does help to see if you like the environment that it's in, to see if you like the types of people. And then it is different, like based on working at a hostel of working in a yoga studio versus working for a resort hotel. Like all of those have a very different clientele too. And that's something I'm just learning as I develop as a yoga teacher too, is getting really specific on the clientele and the environment that I want to teach in, because I think we're all trying to find the environments that we thrive best in. And so I think, starting to show up or just having these different little experiences, you'll start to see more clearly of like what you like best and who you like to work with best, just as you do here in the United States with trying to build your own following and audience. There's a lot of different factors in teaching yoga in different locations in different countries and things like that too.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I imagine there would be, and language barriers. And do you speak a second language? Or,
no,
not yet.
No, I know. I'm thinking about Spanish in like the next 2 years, maybe really trying to pick that up, because it's hard as a traveler. I feel like I'm a dummy out there, the only one who just speaks English. Like people out of other cultures, they definitely do make fun of Americans for only speaking English, but it is hard because everyone wants to speak English. So we don't really we are like blessed. It's like a fortunately and an unfortunately, we're never pushed to have to learn another language.
Yeah. Yeah, well, hopefully that'll change. But you're right. There's, at least in the developed world, most people speaking multiple languages from a young age. So I've felt that same way. Like, oh God, I spoke broken German from high school, and Spanish I picked up working in restaurants, and so I wasn't fluent in anything other than English. And yet I would talk to people that were maybe fluent in 3 or 4 languages, and they're very matter of fact about it.
Yeah, and you're like, what am I doing?
Right. So I know I've been trying to commit to learning Spanish for a while now as a stepping stone, and so that's cool. And I think it's a valuable thing to have in your skill set. You just described yourself earlier, among other things, as a soul searcher. Like, I want to kind of dig into that. What does that mean to you? And
I think that means being a seeker and working on taking off different layers of yourself, developing yourself, like doing different personal development, to get a little bit deeper and get a little bit clearer on who you are and what you want, where you're going, what energies you have, what talents you have. So I'm always looking for those opportunities to get a little bit deeper, to get to know myself better, do some like internal deep cleaning. You know, I think that in this world, like, I really think like if we want to change the world, we have to change ourselves first. And, you know, we're the biggest impact we can make usually is on ourselves. And that does influence all the other people around us. You know, showing up for ourselves, making ourselves better, influences everyone around us just as much as it influences us. And so, yeah, I like to do some deeper work and, you know, help take off some veils and layers and peel away the layers of the onion.
Yeah, no, that's proverbial onion, right? Well, that's cool. And to be doing that work in conjunction with developing as a teacher. And that's really, I think it's vital. You know, a lot of times we can get busy with a path, maybe it's teaching or whatever our career path is, and then we lose sight of that deeper inner work. It can get pushed to the side, really, really busy. But now, what did you, when you were in college, what were you studying? That I mean, you said like I was going to, you know, get my yoga certification while I was still in college. But how has that helped on your journey?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. This is a good thing to share. So my degree is in secondary health education. So when I went to college, I knew I wanted to work in health. I've always wanted to be in the health wellness environment, and I knew I wanted to be a yoga teacher, and you can't study that at IU Bloomington. So I thought I was going to do dietetics, and then health education really felt right because it's kind of back to what I said. If you can improve yourself, if you can improve your health, you can improve so much the rest of the world. And I loved health education. I loved studying it. I loved going to classes. I'm so happy I studied that, but it was really interesting. So when I did this yoga training was right before my senior year. And I just look back and I think that my first yoga training, I really started to question health of all of these things I had been learning for 3 years. And really that's 3 years of studying in college. Like I had loved to study health way before I even got to that point, but really so many ideas started shifting for me on like, yes, I can break down dietetics for you. I can break down so much of like chemically and mathematically what you should put in your body. But I don't think, there was no really influence of like holistic health in my life at all until I went to my first yoga training.
Interesting. Yeah.
There was no influence in that in health education. And there was no influence of just like thinking about not eating your proteins and your carbs and your calories, because that's like what we're so stuck on here in nutrition. Like thinking about what am I fueling my body with? Like what am I eating every day? Like that is going to create this being and like fueling how this energy runs, how I can operate every day. We get so stuck on like proteins, carbs. Let me break this down for you. Like when you look at a plate, are you thinking about, is this going to fuel me? Like that's that's the questions you need to ask yourself. And I just think there's so many doors that opened there for me in that yoga training on into mental health. Like, you know, every area of health, it's also super connected. And I think yoga is the best way we can start to work through some of those things and work through all of those things as a whole. But yeah, never once in any of my classes did you hear any of this.
Yeah. So that's interesting. Yeah.
I mean, that was kind of when I've not had a job in health education. I really kind of started to step away from health education too, because that when you're studying too, something like that to be a teacher, you study what is the American standards of health education. And I'm just now like, these American standards don't really fit in my idea of health. And through traveling internationally, so then after I graduated from college, I lived in Europe for a year. And I taught health education in Ireland, and then I was an au pair in Belgium. And through just seeing other people's health habits, that was when I really started to get these ideas of, wow, these health principles that we follow in the United States, not everyone follows them. It's not like the holy grail of what's right and what's wrong, but we are kind of brought up to think like, oh, this is the right way to treat my body. This is what's important to everyone as a human. This is it. Like, and I do think there's a lot of science between some things are right, some things are not right. But once you start to see other cultures, they have a completely shifted idea of what's most, what are the most principal ideas for them, what's most important for them culturally. And I was like, well, yeah, it's not all right that we have here in the United States, This is not the answer to everything. So yeah, it's been a strange experience that I've had through health education, because I feel like holistic health and yoga have really, really started to turn my ideas of health for sure.
Yeah. So, well, and that, I guess as you were talking, it made me think of they have their own standards in their health and medical industry, their diet. I mean, there's, and some of that has it based on sort of cultural, environmental, and then some of it, I know here, like a lot of things will get based on maybe science or pseudoscience, and then there's so much flexibility, I don't want to say flexibility, but there's such a variety of practices people use in their own, diet or whatever that, and it changes throughout different phases of life. But it's interesting though that you picked up on that, early on in your journey. And were you in communities and countries where people seemed healthier based on their lifestyle and dietary stuff? I mean, does it seem like the outcome was happening? I think,
well, when I lived in Belgium, I think people were healthier by standards there, because I think they just have more activity, health. I think here in the United States, we feel like activity is something we have to check off our list. It's not necessarily a part of our lifestyle. I'm saying that just for general American society. I feel like exercise and activity feels like more of a check off the list, more than it's just part of my normal routine and day. That's what we like to do for a lot of people. And they were just super more active, and there's not really fast food. Fast food is very an American thing. People are always eating such horrible foods here with no quality, and it kills me. Yeah. But there's not as that availability of quickness and convenience in other countries as it is here in the United States. The United States is the capital of convenience and quickness in so many different areas, but that includes in food. And so since we were always eating, I always see people eating crap because it's so easy,
readily available.
So, and it's just not readily available there. And it's on Sundays, the grocery stores are closed, or everything closes at 8 p.m. or 6 p.m. So it's you get your, you go to the market and you get your food and you make a meal. And there's just so many little things like that of habits that they have embedded in their culture that set them up so much better than the habits that we have here.
Yeah, I've noticed that in traveling too, and particularly in Northern Europe or Western Europe, there'll be very few people walking around carrying, eating, or much less carrying a to-go beverage. And if you wanted to have a coffee or a latte or something, you went to a coffee shop, you sat down, you drank it, and then
you enjoyed it.
Right.
You weren't running to the next thing.
Right. Yeah. And even driving, you didn't see anybody driving, shoving food in their face and in a hurry. I mean, I've limited travel, but enough times and I have enough awareness to notice, and it's definitely not the culture through most of the rest of the world. All right.
Yeah.
So no, that's very cool. And so you came back from working in Belgium, and then you went off to your journey for teaching, or
I lived in Indy for a year in between there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you were teaching yoga a bit there, and was that the period in your journey?
The burnout period.
Yeah.
That was the burnout period. Yeah. Yeah, I think too, as you're starting being a yoga instructor, and especially for me trying to break into this community and being a lot younger than most other teachers, I think not even for other people, but for me, I just was trying to grab onto any experience, improve myself, prove myself to me that I could take on this weight of classes, and that I could show up at these different places and teach yoga. And I mean, it's all part of the experience. Like, it's all part of the growth and the path experience as well, figuring that out. And then looking back and like, now I'm way more meticulous about, okay, what space actually serves the teacher I want to be and